and roll, Chicago. Rock and roll, Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago. Chicago rock and rollers are the best year around.
Hey, this is Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie.
for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. How's things going today, Ray?
Things are going well. I'm pretty excited about this week's episode.
Yeah, we're taking a turn, kind of a left turn from our normal band interviews, and in interviewing another legendary rocker.
A living legend.
Yes, a living legend, and that is radio personality Mitch Michaels.
Doing the cruise with Mitch.
And Mitch has got a new book out, and he's still on the air at WERV 95.9 The River in Aurora. Yeah, in the western suburbs. You can catch him in the west suburbs and south suburbs. Just about, it's got a pretty good range there.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good signal. I can pick him up in where I'm at.
That's good.
So how are we able to hook up with Mitch?
We were able to hook up with Mitch through my good buddy and bandmate John McFarland from M&R Rush. John is a good friend of Mitch's, and we want to thank John for hooking us up with Mitch and setting this all up for us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, John.
That's good. So, what do you say we get to this interview with Mitch Michaels right now?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, here we go. So this is Paul Martin
And Ray the Roadie.
with the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
This week we're speaking with a legend rock and roller from Chicago, Mitch Michaels. How you doing, Mitch?
You know, I'm a little concerned that you lead right in with that legend thing. I've always said I thought you had to be dead to be a legend. So maybe you could be alleged legend.
A living legend.
Okay,
I should have said a living legend.
I can literally live with that. So, but, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for letting us come in.
So tell us. I mean, I know you started out in radio back in Bethesda, Maryland, and spent some time in Cleveland. Which actually, I spent some time in Cleveland too.
Really?
Yeah. When I was a kid, my mom and dad moved to Parma. I lived in Parma.
Parma.
Yeah.
Parma.
Yes.
There was a guy in Cleveland.
Right.
Named Ernie Anderson, real name, but he did this stuff on Saturday nights, and it was this Goulardi,
right.
And that's where Jerry G. Bishop got his idea, because he was a disc jockey in Cleveland.
Right.
He came to Chicago and started Sven-Gulli.
And he would do Berwyn.
Yes, right, exactly.
Parma.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I remember that. But this is Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. So
that's fine. We'll leave Parma and Cleveland and
we'll leave that behind.
Yes,
a little bit. And
as I did many years ago.
Yes,
but that's
yes.
okay.
And I know you were with WGLD and XRT and WD, and you name them, you were with them. What was this?
I've been fired from most of the good stations.
What was
a couple times more than once.
What was the order and what did you do at each
I came here in 1971 and was working at WGLD, the beautiful Oak Park Arms Hotel in Oak Park, Illinois, 5th floor of an old folks hotel. It's very bizarre. I'm going to work at night with a bottle of wine, a couple of joints in my pocket, some albums to play, and some burning stuff to kind of kill it.
Yeah.
And every night I take the elevator up, and the guy that was the kind of the security for the place was this big old guy, missing a couple teeth in front, but geez, he was probably 6'2". Yeah. 275.
Yeah.
He looked like he was a badass at one point in time. Yeah. He would ride the elevator up with me every night. I mean, I had long hair.
Right.
Looked very suspicious back in those days anyway. But it was just so weird. And I only worked there about 6-7 months. But the guy, he thought one of these nights I was going to start sneaking down the hall looking for some 74-year-old ladies. Now at my age, 74-year-old ladies don't seem so old.
Now you might, yes.
But WGLD, and then I was early on at XRT in 1972. Went to WDAI.
WDAI was next.
Yeah, that was ABC. Was there for a couple 2.5 years. Then went back to XRT. Then went back to DAI, and then Bob Pittman hired me at WKQX. was the first voice ever heard on that station at 6 o'clock on New Year's Eve, 1976.
Right.
And that was the famous no commercials and whatever for a few months, and all the TV commercials and stuff like that. It was a big, very fun deal. I was there about 2.5 years, and then I went to the Loop, and that was one of those magic carpet rides.
Right.
Just, I can't even really explain all the stuff that happened in such a short period of time. I talk about it in the book, but it's just like we were doing one thing after another, like every week or every 2 or 3 weeks. It was like just... It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The station was so promotion-oriented and had such a dynamic staff and a dynamic advertising campaign with Lorelei as the TV commercials.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And let me just sidelight that real quick. Sidebar, she still is a friend of mine. I speak to her often on Facebook and whatever else, and she's still gorgeous.
Yeah.
All these 40 years later. She really is. So that's just a fun little sidelight, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, that just took off like crazy.
Oh, it was crazy.
It was time for a station like that.
Well, we went in the ratings 3.55573 in 3 books, and we beat WLS straight up 12 plus in that third book, and that had never been done by an FM station before. Wow. They were like, yeah. Oh, maybe we do need to pay attention to these guys. It was like, but that was just magical.
Why do you think that happened?
I think it was part the timing, part the advertising, part the mixture of talent and music. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about the period of time, disco was just kind of waning at that point in time. Dahl had just come over from DAI, where they had gone disco and fired him. I'd been in the market for a while, so I was a reasonably well-known commodity. I'd been here like 8 years. They brought in Sky Daniels, the Abrams organization, just all the different combination of things. Certainly the television campaign certainly didn't hurt at all, let me tell you. And the fact that we were so promotionally active with just one thing after another, boom, 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 And I mean, everybody talks about disco demolition and the disco riot, the disco disgrace, or whatever you want to call it. Quite frankly, it was probably the greatest radio promotion in the history of the business.
Right.
Of course.
Because you know what they say, I don't care what you say about me, just make sure you spell my name right. And man, we were on every TV station, we were national news, we were, and that didn't hurt either. And then, of course, you had the crowd inside and another 30,000 people outside. But if everybody that claimed they were there that night were actually there, we'd had 1.5 million people there. So, it was one of those kind of
things.
Like
all of us that were in Woodstock.
Oh, it was much bigger than Woodstock.
I understand you were there. You were there.
I was there, absolutely. I did play-by-play. A bucket list thing for me. I did play-by-play with Harry Carey and Jimmy Pearsall. It was a doubleheader, and I did it in the first game. And I'm sitting there trying to explain to Jimmy, what do all these... First off, the Sox didn't draw shit.
Right.
They weren't. Even when they were good, they don't draw. But they weren't drawing. And this was an idea that Mike Veck had come up with to put fannies in the seats.
Right.
We had a meeting that afternoon, and the highest number that anybody wrote, and we all wrote a number on the blackboard of how many people we thought would show up. The highest number was 28,000, and we were like, "Oh wow, we get 28,000. This is going to be pretty cool." Well, needless to say, we had 42 plus in the building, and another 30 or so plus outside the building trying to get in. So it was pretty crazy, and I'm trying to explain to Jimmy who all these people are. I said, Jimmy, the only way I can explain this to you is they're kind of double headers. They're sports fans and they're rockers. So you got to call them sports rockers. And he couldn't quite figure it out. And Harry was just was being Harry. But it was really cool. And then the whole thing exploded once Steve and Gary and Lorelei got out on the field.
Right.
And here was the thing. Remember, back in those days, they had anti-frames at every,
Every aisle. Yeah.
Mike didn't have enough security to keep people in every aisle because we didn't think there was going to be that many people.
Right.
Right. So, boom. First few people go out, and then more people, and then more people, and more people. It's like, Mike Vec comes to me and he goes, "Can you get on the PA and see if you can get these people off the goddamn field?" The field already. Really, I don't think they realized what they were doing with the explosion, because when they blew up all the records, there was a huge burn mark out in the outfield anyway, before the kids even really got out there and started tearing up the grass and stealing the bases and doing the whole do like that. But we got on. I got on the PA and we did what we did at concerts. So we had back to your. We had people who were still in their seats chanting, "Come on, back to your," and people were starting to come on. This is a true story, and let me preface it by saying I've always been a Harry Carey fan. Loved him. Yeah, one of my heroes, maybe the greatest play-by-play guy ever. I don't know. Harry comes back up out of the Bard's room. I guess he hadn't been watching. What the hell's going on? Holy cow! You people got to get off the place. Take me out to the bar. Well, the rest is history. They weren't hearing that. And more people were going out on the field.
And we're coming up on the 40th anniversary.
They actually just had last Thursday. They did the anniversary of it because the 12th of July is the day everybody comes out of the All-Star break, and the Sox are in Oakland.
All right.
So they couldn't do it then. So Steve was there throughout the first pitch, and
supposedly threw out a strike.
And I had several friends that were there, and they said it was pretty cool. It was great. It's funny because there's still been this pall that hangs over it about anti-gay and anti-Latino and all this kind of stuff that somebody, there was an article in the Tribune about it. Right. And it's such bullshit. I was involved with this thing from the get-go. There was never any anti-anything except disco.
Disco.
It was just the music and the attitude that was there, and that was it.
Now, how do you feel about the loop now? I mean,
it's very sad. Very
gone.
Sad.
Yes.
I was actually in Mexico with the station on a trip, and we read about it on like Tuesday, and then I found out that Dahl was doing the final broadcast on Friday, and his producer called me about 12 or 12:30. She goes, "Steve, love to have you on. 2:33, I'll call you back." So I was on the broadcast, and I didn't hear the broadcast because I was not somewhere that I could pick it up. But I mean it's really sad. We just had another station up north, 103.9 The Fox. Just went. The same people bought them, and they went religious there as well. It's okay.
I guess it's something that just happens in radio.
It's like anything.
And you never
change
know.
the format, change the owners, change the staff, change the idea. You're going in a different direction. It's like that just happens. Fortunately, this place, knock on wood, is maintaining its luster, at least for now. So ratings are good. The sales staff is...
This podcast brought to you by 95.9 The Arrow.
That's right. Damn right.
Or the River.
The River. The Arrow. Get the Arrow out and put it in you. What are you talking about?
So have you kept in touch with Sky Daniels?
You know what?
Sky Daniels.
Sky is not a send you a postcard, send you a note, whatever kind of guy. He and I have exchanged stuff on Facebook. He sent me a couple of birthday cards, the jib jab stuff, and whatever else. He actually just retired. He was running a station out there in L.A., and I believe it was actually under an educational license, but it was a commercial station.
I did hear that. Yes,
and the station did really well. It was very progressive. A lot of new music, which was what Sky, that was his passion. And so he just retired, I think.
Oh, okay.
He was here. I mean, Sky was here for about a year and a quarter. He did a thing on 9 FM. And we play anything. And I worked for them for about a year there.
Okay.
And it was kind of cool because there was 3 low-power FMs. Okay, there was one on the south side, one out west, and one up north. And they were simulcast.
I see.
And so you had some coverage.
Right.
But the idea was, I thought, wow, when we play anything, I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
you'd play U2, and then you'd play NWA, and then you'd play some jazz, or you'd play some blues.
Wow.
It really was just a total. There's a format called the Jack format that is similar to that, but this was even more progressive in the sense of what we're doing with it. And it really was like, for me, it was very educational. I play a lot of music I never would have played on the radio any other place, and it was a lot of fun, and it was it was kind of cool. It was very different. So,
what are your feelings toward satellite radio and Spotify and Pandora?
You know what? I mean, they are part of the mix. Terrestrial radio is what I've always done. But if the folks at Sirius XM are listening, I'd be happy to have a deep track show. Please call me. Scott Greenstein, I think you're the guy that runs the joint. Please give me a call. It's like, hey, I mean, it is what it is. Radio used to be the only medium. Okay,
right.
You had television, obviously, radio, and newspapers, and that's what made radio so special back in those days. You want to know when the Stones were coming, you wanted to hear the new Van Halen album, you wanted to hear the interview with Stevie Winwood or whatever else. Well, the only place you could hear it would be on the radio.
Right.
Well, now, I mean, with
and
you
waited for that too. You waited.
Yeah,
you heard something
of course.
new was coming out. You waited to hear that.
Oh, yeah. You were tuned in. You didn't want to miss that.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, that was the magic of really being that only medium, but now with so many, with the internet, with the
podcasts.
Podcasts. I mean, it's just, you're killing me. You're probably taking some of my audience away. Turn that damn thing off. But, like anything, you have to adapt. You have to. It's funny because I'm working harder now here because I have so many other things I have to do. I've got to write a blog every day. I've got to do a verbal blog every day. I got to make sure I got an Instagram. I got to make sure I got. It's like, hey, holy, it's like, hey, I'm here to do some rock and roll on the radio.
Right.
But it's like, can I hire an assistant to do this stuff? Yeah, if you want to pay him.
What happened to the guy on the other side of the window?
Yeah, right. Yeah, hey, get over here. Get me a beer and a sandwich while you're at it. What are you doing? It's like,
back in the day, the heyday.
Yeah.
Did you get out and see a lot of local bands?
Oh yeah. We used to go to. There was so many different places we'd go to. I'm trying to think of some. We go to Haymakers. We go to. God, what were the name of them? There was 2 or 3 places up north that we would go. What was the place over on River Road?
There was Thirsty Whale.
Thirsty Whale. I mean, that was that. And you'd even get a chance to see some local bands because Arnie and Jerry a lot of times would have a local band open for somebody else. They'd be like the first on a bill of 3 or something like that.
Right.
So you get a chance to see and then of course we did the hometown albums. So the idea there was obviously for local bands to get their best stuff in to see if they could make the grade on that, and that was daunting in one sense. God, I mean that first one we got, wow, I mean like 5,000-6,000 tapes.
Wow,
it's like and it's like anything. You listen to them, and 90% of them were horseshit. Right. They really were terrible. But there were some that were pretty good, Right. And of course, M&R Rush ended up on the Loop, the first Loop Rocks album.
Right. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Checks in the mail, right? Yeah. But that was fun because you really got a chance to actually, hear some people and actually go do some studio stuff with them as well. And then we did the concerts with it, which was even more fun, you know. So you had a chance to put 10 bands on stage, and they each did 2 or 3 songs, and people got a chance to see that. And they were always well received. We had, you know, I mean, the concert tickets weren't expensive, but you know, those shows, we did them I think at the Uptown, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, exactly.
The beautiful Uptown, which now is in disrepair, but Jerry Michelson's in the process of raising some more dough, and he's going to have that open in another year or two, which is very exciting.
So any favorites from back then?
Local bands? Yeah. Oh, wow. My brain is just going completely south.
Now, KQX did it.
Well, we did 2 at KQX, and then we did 2 at the Loop, too.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah. Gosh, I can see people's faces. I can't think of their names. You know, off the top of my head, no. And I really never did like Heaven or Rush. I'm kidding. You know, there were some. You know, I mean, I think of The Kind. The Kind was a band I knew. Mike Shai was a good friend of mine, still is, and he was their manager. And I got to know those guys real well and saw them, you know, in more than a few places.
Frankie Capek's still playing around with 5 guys named Mo.
Yeah. Buster was an interesting band. Then they became. I think they got a contract. They ended up with like Capitol or something. They had a couple albums on Capitol, I think. So you know, there was a lot of really good bands. You know,
definitely. Don't see that much anymore.
Well, it's like radio. It's just a whole tougher deal to find a place to play, and somebody's going to pay you, and you know. They want covers if you're there. They don't want to hear your originals a whole lot. They want you doing Journey, Foreigner, and Bon Jovi. It's like
Well, you used to play to promote your albums.
Yeah,
now
sure.
It's the other way around.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, what about big name acts? I mean, some of your favorites, obviously, to play it now, still to this day. You know.
Oh yeah.
Led Zeppelin, or who?
I wish Led Zeppelin was still playing today.
Well, I mean, to not necessarily go see, but I mean just to play on the radio. Some of your true favorites.
You know what? I'm still a huge Led Zeppelin fan. I'm still a huge Stones fan. I don't get to play enough Beatles still. Yeah. I mean, that stuff is. I grew up with that stuff,
right?
You know, and so you know, you think about that. The Eagles have always been a favorite of mine. I'll tell you, one of my favorite bands that did very little, but what they did was incredible. Was the Traveling Wilburys. That first album is an extraordinary piece of music. Every song on there is just a masterpiece. You talk about a super group,
right? Well, the Taylor,
those 5 guys. It's like, are you kidding me? They're all Hall of Famers,
and it's hard to find Volume 2.
I wasn't.
No Volume 2.
Well, there is they did do a second album, but Roy Orbison.
It's called Volume 3.
Oh, is that what it was?
Right.
Yeah, but Roy Orbison had already passed,
right?
So and he was such a special part of that thing.
Yes, he was.
Yeah,
it was a great group of guys. Whoever thought of that?
Well, it was a happenstance. I mean, the way I understand it, Harrison was having dinner at Bob Dylan's house, and Jeff Lynne was there, and Roy Orbison might even been there too. And Harrison realized he'd left his guitar at Tom Petty's house, so he called Tom Petty. He said, "Hey, can you bring?" You know, so Petty shows up, and then the 5 of them just started jamming on "Handle with Care," and boom, you know, the rest of it is magic and is history. So it was one of those kind of wasn't really meant to be, but it was really meant to be. You know,
kind of like a modern day $1 Million Quintet.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. Exactly. Just happened to be there and happened to, you want to, well, let's, try this. You know, I mean, that's the magic of music anyway. I mean, it draws from so many things and does so many things, and it's, you know. But you talk about bands, not only that I love to play on the radio, and there's a lot of them that I don't get to play.
Right.
But I still fall back on my experiences and my extraordinary access that I had for so many years of, you know, being able to walk in the back door.
Sure.
Get him in here.
Oh yeah.
We don't even have to cavity search. Well, actually, maybe we should cavity search. But you know, having been the voice of Jam for like a dozen years,
right.
All the Jam shows, and I was in really good stead with the guys from Celebration Flipside as well. Mm-hmm. They were friends, so I mean, I had access to just an unbelievable amount of music. And I mean, I saw Led Zeppelin 4 times.
Yeah.
So, just that kind of circumstance.
I know you've got some great stories. I know in your book, Doing the Cruise, Memories from a Lifetime in Radio and Rock and Roll.
Right. Available on the Eckert Press. And
there you go. I know.
If you can plug, I can plug.
That's right.
Ray.
I read the book. It's very good.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know you've got some great stories. Can you tell us maybe a story that you didn't include in the book?
I'll tell you a story that I thought was going to be in the book. There's a story about the boys from Illinois. You talk about a local group. Dirty Dan and those guys, all good friends of mine, they were playing at the Park West. And they opened for somebody. I forget who it was. And Dan and I were always roughhousing and having fun and whatever else. And we get into a wrestling match up at the bar, between bands. And all of a sudden, we're up on the bar, rolling down the bar, knocking drinks over, and there was no, it wasn't like, "Well, kick your ass." No, it was one of being half in the bag, having fun, and the security guys come up and grab us by the scruffs of our necks, and they look and they go, normally we throw your asses out of here immediately, but we're going to let you stay off the bar. And let's keep a little distance between, It's like, so and that sadly, that story got cut from the book. It was just one of those, we got But, there's, I think, I don't remember if the story of another Dirty Dan Buck story. He's such a maniac anyway.
Yeah.
Loop Fest, which was in February of 1980, and 2 days at the amphitheater. We set a 2-day attendance record. Okay, we had 46 or 47,000 people there in 2 days, and then bands playing every day, and vendors, and it was the whole wild thing. It was crazy, and the boys were playing, and there was a stack of speakers. Okay, they had to be 10, 12 feet up in the air, maybe higher. Dan climbs up the stack. He's up there, and he jumps off. Now, me, if I'd have jumped off, I'd have broke both my legs, probably he rolls, he's fine, he gets up. It's like unbelievable. But I saw this with my own eyes. I'm like, oh my God.
Here's the end of the show.
Yeah, really. Here's the climax. The body's but a bag of water, and when it hits at a certain speed, it just goes splat.
I remember that show at the amphitheater. Yeah.
I
personally got to meet Lorelei. I was just,
hey. Yeah, that was great. Those were great times, magical times.
So tell us a little bit about the book.
The book was obviously a long time in coming. How it came about, I got a buddy of mine named Don Ramsell, who's an attorney and is the smartest guy I know. He's also one of my best friends, and he's written a couple of law books, probably 10 inches thick. I mean, I've seen him working on these things. It's like, dude, what are you doing? So he and I were together a lot, and I'd tell a story or something about something, and he'd go, "Are you writing this stuff down? So your memory gets bad. You should write a book. Yeah. You need to write a book." He said that to me for a couple of years. Well, finally, one day, he said it, and then somebody else said it, and I'm like, maybe I should. So I was having dinner with my buddy John Howell and another guy, Joe. I can't think of his last name. Joe. He's a sales guy. And I'm telling him about my idea about doing a book. He goes, "I got the guy for you. I got the guy you should plug into. His name's Ken Chirilla. I'll give you his number. You should call him, get together with him, see if you like him. He's a writer. He wrote a book already. He does a lot of magazine stuff." So Kenny and I got together, and we clicked. So he started. I said, "Okay, here's..." set up our deal and whatever else, and he came over 2 and 3 days a week, and we'd sit in my living room, and I'd just tell stories. And we kind of did it in chronological order, and he recorded it as well as taking notes, and then he'd send me, 20 pages, and I go, this is good. No, and I'd rewrite stuff, and and it took us 2 years, and it was very cathartic, and it was it was funny. I mean, things would trigger other things. We'd be talking about something, and I go, oh, wait a minute, I was like, what about,
You get off at another tangent.
Or something, it would just spark a light bulb about.
Right.
I mean, I was talking about the early days when I was at WGLD, and we'd gone on and moved on to other stations, and all of a sudden I'm sitting there going, wow, I forgot, we got to talk about the first show I ever emceed in Chicago. And it was a live broadcast as well. And I did 7 to midnight. The show was in the afternoon. And it happened to be from the Cook County Jail. Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. Live from the Cook County Jail on WGLD. And I'm the MC. I'm on the on-site MC, okay? I got the bell bottoms and the hair down to my shoulders and whatever else. It was 1972. And one of the freakiest things ever was they opened that first big chain link fence, and you walk in, and then they close it, and it's got the razor wire up on top, 25 feet up there. If you can get that high before they shoot you. And then they open the second one, and they let you in. And so, yeah, it was it was one of those... wow.
How'd the show go over?
It was Wayne Cochran. Come on. The guy, he was a showman.
Right.
Now, WGLD, wasn't that a publicly funded station?
No, it was owned by Egmont Sonderling was the guy's name. He owned WGLD and WOPA, which was the AM station. The AM station was even more unique. You had these long-haired freaks playing rock and roll on the FM station. The AM station was the cornucopia of life. You had the Greek hour and the English hour and the French hour, and then you had the polka hour and the all this kind of stuff. And we had a window. Our studio was relatively small, but had a pretty good-sized library in it. And then there was a window to the next room, which was a much bigger studio, and that was the AM studio. And 7 to midnight at night, there was 3 or 4 different shows that went on over there, and it was like, it was like the changing of the guard,
Right.
It's like, okay, I think we're back to the Greek Isles again. Thank you. I was like, where are the girls? Where's the suntan oil?
Now, a few years prior to this, I understand you did some news reporting at Kent State.
Well, I was working for a station in Cleveland. I was a board op engineer back in those days. First job in Cleveland, and I was going to Kent State. I was a student there, and the unrest of the Vietnam War spilled over into. You didn't go to college, you went to Kent. It was a Midwest teachers' college. It was not a hotbed of protest or whatever else.
Right.
But it was a big school. It was 20,000 people, state school. And, Nixon invaded Cambodia, and that brought substantial reaction from a lot of places, including at Kent. And there was 4 days of just crazy shit going on. The 1st of May was a Friday. I worked until 12:30, got home about 1:30, and there was police blocking the road, and they were checking IDs of people driving, because a lot of kids had gone in and smashed a lot of storefront windows and stuff like that for whatever reason. Second night, we're blocking the streets again, but this time they weren't letting anybody. They didn't care if you lived there or not. I had to do about a 25-mile detour around, come in the back way, because the kids had burned the ROTC building. And they were a bunch of kids sitting in the middle of the street. I went back down into the campus. There was about 2,000 people sitting right in the middle of the main street and the Route 12, I think, or whatever it is, right there. Mm-hmm. And another probably 4,000 or 5,000 around them. There was a helicopter right out of a movie. The spotlight on them, and they called out the guard and whatever else. And so Sunday night, I worked early Sundays, and I got done at like 6 or 7 o'clock, so I was back in Kent by 7:30 or 8, and there was going to be a big rally that night. I had press credentials, I had my recorder, and the Guard was out in force. They had brought the National Guard in force, and these guys were all wearing gas masks, okay? So you couldn't identify them anyway. It was pretty scary. You look at, and I'm trying to get through this one spot, and this guy clocks me right in the jaw with his rifle, knocks me over. I said, "Dude, press." He goes, "Get the fuck out of here, man." He didn't care what I was. So I took his advice. I went home that night, reported what I could. I was doing stringer reports from there for the station in Cleveland. And Monday there was supposed to be another gathering, and it was about noon or so. And I was taking my wife to the dentist, and we're going down. We lived off to the southeast of campus. We're coming in through campus, and all of a sudden there's like 3 ambulances flying the other way, and so I did a U-turn, followed right behind them, got over just behind the building behind the architecture building, and kids are still running and whatever, and I get out and told her to lock the doors of the car and come around the building, and one of the ambulances was picking up one of the kids that had been shot right there in the parking lot, and it was very bizarre. And that was like 12:30 maybe. By 2 o'clock, that campus was cleared. 20,000 people gone. The only people on the campus were faculty and the Guard. And it was really eerie, bizarre, eerie. As this whole thing unfolded, it was, a day I will never forget, needless to say.
A lot of that's understandable.
Mark Mothersbaugh, I think his name is, from Devo, was a student there, and they did some stuff on it. Chrissy Hine was a student there. She left school and went to England. Joe Walsh was a student there. He said, "I'm done with this. I'm definitely following up on music full time." So it was probably a good move on Joe's part. We used to see the James Gang. They would play in the bars there. You'd see the James saying, "Hey, Friday night, the James Gang at this or that." It's funny to see that and experience that,
Right.
And
well, we had a lot of groups out of Chicago that had come out like that too. We've seen, guys like Cheap Trick.
Oh,
and, Survivor.
Sure.
They were all playing the bars around here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Sticks.
Well, the old days Chicago. I mean, think about those guys too. Sticks. God, Sticks paid their dues for years. The Dex Card tours. Those things were like Sticks Thursday night in Maribel, Sticks Friday night in Deer, Sticks Saturday night. It was like those were crazy.
2 shows on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. A matinee. Right? You younger ones.
And they didn't care what kind of M&Ms were in their bowl back then.
Absolutely not. Really. Who they think they were? Van Halen? It's like crazy.
So now you're at WERV, the River, 95.9. And I know you mentioned you're busier than ever, but...
I am. I mean, they got me working so hard, it's like, I'm old. I got to rest. I mean, come on, what are you talking
Well, what about retirement?
You know what? It's funny. I turned 71 in March. And I get people that ask me, they go, well, you thinking about retiring? I'm like, well, let me tell you. First off, I'm still having a lot of fun.
Right.
I'm still doing what I love to do. I think I'm doing it at a relatively high level. People seem to like it.
Oh, yeah.
They're not throwing cabbages and rotten tomatoes at me when I'm out and about, or even here when my key still fits in the door, they let me in. So it's like, you talk about the book. It's been such a treat to have people respond after reading the book and talking about, oh, geez, you took me back. I was there, or I felt like I was there, and this and that. And it's such an easy read. I mean, it's so nice to hear that from people. I'm glad. I wrote it because I had a lot to say. I wrote it because I thought the stories would be interesting for people.
Sure.
And that's the fun part about what I'm still doing on the radio. I'm still telling stories. It's still my reflective of 50 years of rock and roll, and people still seem to like it. So
You only seem to have found a home here.
yeah. Oh, longest job I've ever had. Knock on wood, or whatever. They seem to be at least happy with me through today. So if they want their key back at the end of the day, I guess I'd have to give it to them. But so far so good. But but I'm having fun. That's isn't that what it's all about?
It's definitely right.
Why are you guys still making music?
Because we're having fun and we enjoy each other's company and making music together.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you're not socking away, $600-800 grand every weekend.
No, unfortunately not. But,
neither am I. So it's like, but I mean, it is for the love as much as anything else. And you know what they say: if you find something you really like, pursue it, and you won't work a day in your life. So, I was out of radio for a few years, and
well, we're glad you're still hanging in there.
Well, thanks. Thanks for your concern. Yeah. I'll give you the Mitch.org number. You can send your contributions to.
Well, speaking of which, where can people obviously find you here on the radio? But I mean, social media wise, anything?
Facebook for sure. I'm very active on Facebook. It's people. It's funny. My kids now think I'm a dinosaur. It's like and I probably am, but I said I'm not extinct. So.
That's right.
I'll still come kick your ass. I got some T-Rex left in me.
There you go.
But definitely Facebook. I've got an Instagram or 2 pages. There's a couple. I don't use Twitter much. I should probably use it more. But Facebook is the main place. There's a Mitch Michaels 95.9 The River page. There's a Yeah Baby Tunes page, which is my yeahbabytunes.com is my website for. When I was off radio for a few years, I was producing all these vignettes. There's probably 120 or 130 music vignettes that are there that are available for fun and frivolity or whatever else. Well, including the Rod Stewart story. So it's
the Rod Stewart story is a great one.
Yeah,
but we'll leave that for people to read the book.
There you go.
Pick up the book and read about some of the great stories. I mean, you got some journey stories in there.
Oh yeah,
and Rod Stewart is definitely
Steve Perry stories, Mel Brooks stories. A lot of fun things. I was very fortunate to have. A lot of fun people come through. There were some people that were a pain in the ass too. I think some of those got noted in the book as well. We won't mention Billy Joel's name, but it's like,
gee, what a coincidence!
Imagine that.
Yeah. It's called "Doing the Cruise: Memories of a Lifetime in Radio and Rock and Roll."
That's me, baby.
And we thank you.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yes, sir.
So that was living legend and radio personality Mitch Michaels.
Boy, there was a lot of history there. A lot of great stories about local bands as well as national bands.
Yeah, yes, he does. He's got some great stories and some great stories in his book. Be sure and pick that up. It's called Doing the Cruise, Memories from a Lifetime in Radio and Rock and Roll.
And I actually read that book because I can read.
That's good. That's good. We're proud of you, Ray.
Thank you. No, it really is a good book. I'd recommend picking it up and check it out. There's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yes, there is. There's a lot of great stories, like you said, from national bands and local bands, and some great pictures in there as well, too.
Yep, and you can still pick him up at 95.9 The River. He's on Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. till 7 p.m. Still doing the cruise.
That's right. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And be sure and subscribe as usual. And check us out on Facebook at Rock and Roll Chicago Podcast and at rockandrollchicago.net.
And share.
That's SHARE, right?
Right. Yeah. No. We're not interviewing.
Oh, I thought we were doing share next week.
Oh, no. She's not from Chicago.
Oh, okay. Good.
All righty then, everybody. We will see you guys soon.
We'll see you soon. Next up is a great band. We'll keep you in suspense until then. But so have fun, everybody. We'll see you next time. And thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody.
Chicago.